Good evening once again, friends. I'll read from Living Wisely, Living Well, this evening's reading by Swami Kriyanandaji. April 19th. Seek upliftment in the company you keep. Others' magnetism will affect you, whether for good or evil. Make it a point to mix more with people who radiate goodness. Live, if possible, with spiritually minded people. Especially seek out and live in a community whose members are dedicated to living by high principles. And then Swamiji makes a mention of company in the preceding and certain readings after that. For example, he speaks of being kind to animals and offering them an uplifted company by being friendly to them. He mentions also of while we are eating, how we are open to the vibrations, to people's energy and the environment around us, and how, for example, at that time he says that the company you keep while you eat is also very important and such. So that was a beautiful reading, and I think on one level, especially being on the spiritual path, I think I would say even why do we seek a spiritual path? How are we drawn to a spiritual path? One of the most interesting aspects of being in the ashram, in the community, is that when new people come, which we see on a weekly basis, it's very interesting to see how they came to the ashram. They could be from another country, another city. It happens so many times that there is a special event and somebody says, oh, I was just passing by. Or they would say, oh, I've been seeing this place for many months, but today I felt I should come in. I've seen this pattern so many times that I do know that now that there is this something else happening behind the scene, as we say. That I'll talk about this concept. It's magnetism, that we may not be able to see it, perhaps measure it, but just there is this magnetism, or something gets goes right when some things are coming together. And speaking of that, the interesting thing was to ask people that, hey, how did you come on the path? What are you doing? Or which book are you reading? How did that book come to you? So we see that, friends, we find and we seek a spiritual company, especially when we are not happy. Perhaps we are alone. Actually, I wouldn't say when we are not lastingly happy, I would say. I remember one time I was in Kolkata and participating in a book fair over there representing Ananda. And somebody asked me, what do you do? And I said, I teach meditation. We are part of a spiritual group. And then the girls on the other side, they were very young. So one of them said, oh, so what do you do when all the depressed people come to you? And then I looked at her, she was so childish. I said, oh, no, they were from high school and selling some books over there. I said, no, not everybody who comes to us is depressed or, totally broken. But I did tell them that, yes, it requires sometimes suffering, that to come on the spiritual path, when we are alone, when we have nobody, when life disappoints us so many times. In the beginning, when we are young, we think, oh, because we have that youthful energy. It's like, think of a leaf or a bud. When the bud is opening, I don't think if it has that level of consciousness, it must be envisioning its fall, one day as a ripe fruit or a flower. But we are all like that. We are growing and everything is going well for us. We have so much energy, enthusiasm. People tell us, oh, your entire life is in front of you. But sometimes it requires a halt, sudden halt. For one reason or another in our environment or in our personal life, for us to think, I need help. And Kriyanandaji said that he came from a beautiful family. His parents were so harmonious. He said, I do not remember one, argument between them, except he says, one day I remember we had invited some friends for dinner. And at that time, the differing of opinions was that my father wanted to put a certain kind of, napkins and, crockery. And he said, my mom had another opinion. He says, such was their harmony. There was, he said they had many good friends, was from a wealthy family. But he said, that company, you might say, that environment was very stifling. He said, I was not happy. I used to ask, what else has life got to offer? So on one level, we can say that Swamiji was, quite a, advanced soul, quite a ripe soul. And we all have to reach that point. But coming to this concept of environment, Kriyananda ji is saying some beautiful things over there. He says, choose your environment, choose your company wisely. First of all, let's ask ourselves this question. Does it really matter what is our company? I mean, perhaps this is a very simple question. You will all say, of course, even to our children, in kindergarten or primary school, we would teach, mix with certain people. But sometimes, friends, we think that if we are being exposed to a good environment, good company, it's not, perhaps it's not the best thing for us. This may sound strange, but I'll share something. When I was myself in primary school, actually kindergarten, it was here in Pune. I used to go to a school, and about 2 years ago, I came to know that my teacher, who was teaching at that time in her house, was now running a small school. So I went and saw her and met her, and it was very nice. She was quite aged already when I was a kid, so it was very nice to see her in the body and fit, and she was still teaching. In the long conversation we had, she said a very interesting thing to me. She said, I'm so happy, Aditya, that you're happy today. Because many times parents come to me and they tell me that, don't tell our kids too many good stories or only moral stories, because they have to face this competitive bad world out there. And she says what they fail to realize is that if your child has good company of not just outwardly but of his own thoughts, they can manage themselves better in any environment. Mahatma Gandhi was asked the same question when he started Nai Talim, the new system of education in his community. And people said, oh, in the community it is fine, but what about outside? The same thing, Nitai ji, who is the worldwide director for our schools, Living Wisdom schools, he says that's one of the most common questions parents ask me. But remember, friends, life, of course, those challenges actually will come anywhere, in a community or outside in the world. People actually say, even if you run off to a cave, Master used to say that your desires, your thoughts will haunt you over there, and you will have to gain self-mastery. So the point is that our company, yes, it can start outwardly, and the better it is, the more uplifting it is. Swamiji says, mix with those who are radiating goodness. I think it's quite natural for spiritual-minded people to do that. But after that, he says, go for those who are spiritually inclined. That's, I think, one step higher. And finally, he says, try to live in a community where people are dedicated to live by high principles. Now, this is a very interesting concept. Actually, the more I think about it, the more I see that our world today is actually, it needs it the most, but somewhere we are also not ready for it. Or perhaps we could, of course, make ourselves ready, but he uses the word dedicated to high principles. Why? Many times people think, oh, he is good by nature, she is good by nature, or spiritual people, oh, they are naive, they live in an alternate reality. True spirituality is not like that. It is a moment by moment intention. It requires willpower, it requires daily dedication to express that goodness, to return kindness, to forgive people, to be open, to befriend other people. And that is why such an environment of seeing goodness in others, well, it is quite true, many people do not express goodness. Kriyananda ji had a solution for that too. He says, try to find some goodness in them. And he says, water that plant, you might say, in them. And slowly, he says, you will see that goodness grows. It may take, honestly, lifetimes. Yogananda ji said, in this life, brief life, try quickly to find your soul friends. You will recognize them. He says, if you pray, if your heart is open. And once you've found them, cultivate that friendship. Cultivate that company. Once we find somebody who is like-minded, whose presence is uplifting to us, I think it is not enough just to take from them, you might say, or hang on them. I remember when I was a school kid in Pune, I used to love banyan trees, especially in my school, and you hang on them, you swing on them, you're jumping off the wall, holding its long roots, and then your bus is about to leave, so you say, okay, bye-bye, let's go home. And the tree is so nurturing and kind, and we enjoy it. But no, we shouldn't hang on people like that. It's good to enjoy their company. It's uplifting. It brings us that beautiful swing, shall we say. But then we should water that tree also. We should pray to that tree. We should bring something to that friend. I want to share a few stories of how important company is. In the scriptures, it says, and scriptures go back thousands of years, so this wisdom was always there. They say that the company of a guru, one who has gone beyond human relationships and friendships, gone even beyond the uplifting influence of thoughts, they have what is called God consciousness. The spirit has become one with the Creator. The scriptures say that person is the greatest gift in the physical, astral and causal worlds. Such a person, even to be drawn to such a person, they say for a moment, comes with a great blessing, good karma of past lives. But we still have free will, so we can go here or there. That's why Kriyanandaji is saying, be very wise to choose that company. Now, why might be the company of a saint so important? I've thought about that statement. I think I was in the company of such a person, Swami Kriyanandaji, and there are so many, I would say, hidden saints in Ananda also. Why is the company of such a saint person important? For one, if we've read autobiography of a yogi, the thing that immediately comes to our mind is they have the power to give us God in any moment. They can touch you, they can look at you, they can pray for you, and as Master, once he was struggling in his meditations, his Guru had told him, be regular in his meditations, and he was. But one day, his thoughts were just all over the place. And he locked himself in a room and he says, I'm going to meditate and bring my mind under control. Very good intention. He tried, it was not happening. And Sri Yukteswarji was in another room. He says, Mukunda. And Master said, Sir, I'm meditating. Sorry, I cannot come. After some time, Sri Yukteswarji says, Mukunda, come here. And Master says, I'm meditating. And then Sri Yukteswarji said, I know how you're meditating. With your thoughts all around like, birds, leaves in a storm. Come here. And he came, he said, I was exposed. And he came and Sri Yukteswarji said, poor child, the mountains where Master had gone just months before could not give you what you wanted. And he touched him on the chest and Master said he went into Samadhi for the first time in his life. That is the influence of being in the company of a saint. A saint is the best friend. But on the other hand, on more practical terms, I would say, what I have drawn in my life by that company is the memory of their presence. I remember Swami Kriyanandaji's presence and the presence of many acharyas is so uplifting. Sometimes I forgot to ask Swamiji some question which I had in my mind to, ask. Just because in his presence there was so much light. This has happened with other people too. Swami Kriyanandaji used to say that he would have a mood, but he would go to Yoganandaji's presence and suddenly the mood was uplifted. I've heard many people say, oh, but in his presence I was always happy. Why did that happen? Because a new person would come there and they would not realize. But when we look back and say, oh, I was always happy. Another thing we hear so many times is in our satsangs, which the scriptures say, after having a guru, the second most greatest blessing is the presence of like-minded people, spiritual devotees, all who are aspiring to be good people, who are thinking of God and Guru, who are trying to help you. Their company is, satsang is one of the greatest gifts we can have. And people say, oh, I didn't feel like coming to a satsang. And friends, this is dangerous. Swami writes in one of the following quotes. He says, delusion has its dark magnetism. It can keep you in confusion for countless incarnations. Worth meditating on. How many lifetimes do we spend in darkness? It's good that it's hidden from us. Recently, somebody met with an accident and we were asking them, oh, how did this happen? And she said, oh, I don't remember. And then a group of us were discussing, it is such a beautiful mechanism that we forget those incidents and accidents and falls. Imagine if we remembered, perchance, even a fraction of the delusion we have spent our time in. I think the soul faintly remembers, and that is what keeps us moving on the path. But Kriyanandaji says delusion has its dark magnetism and shun it away. The point I'm trying to make is people sometimes stay away from an ashram, from satsangs for many, many months. When they do come back, they say, I'm so happy I came. Sometimes again they're gone for many months. And I've often thought, why can't they simply put a reminder on their phone or tell somebody, hey, are you going every week? And somebody says, yes, take me along, give me a call for morning meditations. Hey, do you wake up? Yes, I do. Please wake me up also. I would like to do it with you. Because then we are in that flow. Jayaji, Sadhnaji, our acharyas here, they would share some stories which I always remember. They said that, sometimes if we were not in a good mood, they said, we would say, okay, step 1, let's get into the car. Step 2, let's drive to the temple. And somehow, let's just go and sit in the satsang. And Sadhnaji would say, over and over and over again, over the years I have seen, I always returned home uplifted. Because that is the benefit of group magnetism. That is the benefit of having a company. Now, I want to share a few things I shared about Swamiji, but I also remember that why is this company important, Because friends, it's not just what you're seeing outwardly. Yes, you may find somebody very pleasant to look at, to talk to, but why are you feeling that? In yoga, we say their magnetism is high. Their magnetism is pure. It is selfless, perhaps. I remember the first time I joined a hospital where I ultimately did my training in surgery. It was a dining place where I was having lunch in between the office work I was doing to get admission. And there were easily about 200 people, I would say, who were having food, and all around, and I was on the far end. And suddenly walked in this professor, this man, who I didn't know, name, degree, nothing. And I looked at him and I asked my friend, I said, who is he? He says, he explained me. Basically, he was the professor to the director of the hospital. And he was very senior. But what I remember right away from the first glimpse across the hall was, he had a very calm, successful aura, sweet aura, which just, you didn't need words. I confirmed it with my friend through words. Who is he? And came to know he was very successful, one of the most successful and humble surgeons in the country. But they had the magnetism. I remember every single moment actually I spent in the next 1.5 years with him. What he said. It's amazing how much magnetism has an effect on our memory. I remember his face, I remember his smile, I remember the time during surgeries, the scoldings, the corrections, the exhortations, the forgiveness. Such beautiful things because he had the right magnetism. Kriyanandaji says develop that quality. Look for that quality in people. I want to read a few more points which I have written over here about some of these stories. Yes, one story is in the Bhagavad Gita. This is very important. You see, Dronacharya, he was the guru to both the Pandavas and Kauravas when they were growing. But when it came to an inevitable war, who did he side with? He sided with the Kauravas. It brought him actually his death ultimately and defeat to the Kaurava side. And Paramahansa Yoganandaji said that story is actually the story of each one of us. We are all having the battle of Kurukshetra within us. And he says Dronacharya in our life symbolizes habits. Now what is a habit? There are habits like tying shoelaces, brushing our teeth, they are neutral habits. But they say that if we have a habit, let's say many people have the habit of stage fright. Now they may prepare very well for a particular program. This happens, that we prepare very well and we say, okay, this is just for 3 minutes, I have to say this poem on stage. But you reach up there and you look at people and all your 100 successful practice sessions are forgotten and you are blank and you come back. This happens in school programs or, dramas especially. Children forget their lines, grown-ups too. Why does that happen? Kriyanandaji said when the testing moment comes in life, unfortunately our habits side with negative side. They fail us. Now we should cultivate very strong positive habits. So when the time comes, we are wise enough to make that shift. And A very interesting principle. Of course, Dronacharya regretted. As his death was coming, he told others also that, I made a mistake. But for us, the lesson is that we should try to work on that quality. There's another beautiful story of the devotee of Sri Yukteswarji, Kumar. He was living in the ashram, he was happy. He was actually, Yoganandaji said, Sri Yukteswar's favorite. And one time he said, I want to go home. Sri Yukteswarji said, you don't need to go home, don't go home. He says, no, I'll be back, sir. And he was not listening, he was not open. He left and he took a long time. When he came, Sri Yukteswarji looked at him from a distance and he said, the world has spoiled him, changed him. He had many bad habits. He was living alone, there was nobody to correct him, inspire him perhaps. Yoganandaji said Sri Yukteswar came to him with tears in his eyes and he says, I will not be able to declare this news to him, but you go and tell Kumar that this is not the place for him anymore. The world will now be his teacher. And Master says that it was not a good ending for that disciple. So again, what company are we keeping? Are we grateful for this company day in and day out? Of course, two beautiful lines. Yoganandaji said, environment is stronger than willpower. That yes, willpower, we develop our willpower, but our willpower, friends, should be used in an ever new and fresh way. If we are facing some challenge in our lives, I often tell people, try to find some solution through Master's teachings. One challenge I often give to people, and I will extend it to you also. I tell them, buy all the books of Swamiji and Master and keep them in your room. Recently, somebody was sharing a story that in their room walked in a distant relative and he saw all those spiritual books and he was so inspired. He said, our devotee was not at home. And the person said, I want to meet your child who is so interested in reading of spiritual texts that we can inspire other people. We can ourselves be inspired. Listen to Swamiji's music. Chant if you can. That will generate that positive magnetism inside of us. Keep the pictures of the masters with you. The Hari Mahashaya said, if you look at my photo just as a picture, it's a picture. But if you look into it, my eyes, if you ask for healing, it is going to cause healing to you. And finally, yes, I want to share this, that in India there is this concept of darshan. What is a darshan? Just the company, momentary company of a saint, how it blesses us, how it can uplift us. Let's remember this, friends, that we can seek this kind of friendship. I'll take a few more minutes because we started late. We can have the company. We start by having a company on a physical level with people. I like my friend, I want to visit him, I want to see him, I want to spend time in their company, in the company of my guru. That's very good. Then, higher than that would be if we can keep a mental connection with our ideals, with our common ideals of the group. But Kriyanandaji says that also may fail. First he says the body will go. Shankhya teaches us that it is a limitation, physical companionship. Companionship through thought also. Perhaps with old age you may lose your memory of all your life events. What stays with us then should be the question. Consciousness. Kriyanandaji said years after years he has seen so many disciples of many enlightened masters who, despite losing their mental faculties which may come with old age, had the blissful consciousness always around them. So much so that they were uplifting others. So that kind of company is what we are seeking. It is eternal, it is unshakable. And now I want to read a poem of Yoganandaji which is based on our talk. It's a prayer. Demand to be freed from self-created evil habits and temptations. Teach me, O Spirit, to distinguish between my soul's lasting happiness and the temporary pleasures of the senses, touch, taste, smell, sight and hearing. Strengthen my willpower. Teach me not to be enslaved by bad habits. Teach me to be guided only by good habits, formed by good company and daily meditation. Teach me above all to be guided by thy wisdom, which is discrimination. Teach me to shun evil by right judgment and discrimination. Teach me willingly to adopt all good ways, influenced only by inner freedom, and not compelled to evil by hardened habits. Again, old habits, patterns, how can we break them, and how to be influenced by inner freedom? The company we are keeping, of our thoughts, our consciousness, of other people, is it bringing us inner freedom? Let that be your guide. God bless.